shambles is an overused word in politics, but today it really describes what's gone on.
And how can the government squeeze it past the divided Brexiteers and former Remainers in the Tory party? We asked a strong member of each camp.
The UK government has compromised and compromised again. We've compromised too far.
These regulations aren't sort of monstrously unfeasible, unworkable regulations. I don't think either side, those who regret the result and those who want a complete break with Europe tomorrow morning, should start by dismissing what is in the white paper.
There is going to be a time for peace and reconciliation in the Conservative Party, but it's not now and it's not next week.
Keeping it friendly isn't likely, and voters on all sides might not be persuaded. Compromise never comes without a cost.
Well, it's taken a very long time to get to what the government thinks is a sensible step forward. But it's unlikely the EU will just swallow it all. And it's not clear tonight that this plan as it stands would actually be able to get through Parliament. Some form of compromise was probably inevitable. But there's a fine line between bend and break.
Laura, thanks very much again for the latest there on the white paper. Laura Kuenssberg at Westminster. Let's stay with the story because British firms, of course, big and small, have been waiting to see the shape of the proposed trade relations with the EU after Brexit. But do these plans today tackle the concerns of British business, especially in relation to trade, not only in goods, but also in services after the UK leaves the EU? Our business editor, Simon Jack, has been finding out.
Borders are bad for business. Delays can slow the wheels of trade. The government hoped today's white paper would reassure companies that goods travelling between the UK and the EU could carry on much as they do now, by creating a free trade area using the EU rulebook on standards and regulations, so no checks are needed. Vital to businesses like cheesemaker Richard Clothier.
Yeah, have a good sniff of that.
He exports over £10 million worth of cheddar to France every year. So what does he make of it?
I think it's a good white paper in terms of it sets out the intent to trade freely with Europe ongoing. I'm concerned about the practicality of administering customs, particularly within the food sector where the supply chains are really complex and there have been issues, in the past. So I think it'd be very difficult to sell this deal to Europe.
But it's finance more than food that feeds the UK economy. Services account for 80% of everything the UK earns, produces and consumes. Services like banking, law and insurance. And here the government's plan is different. Here at Lloyd's of London, tens of billions of euros worth of insurance cover are sold to European customers every year. And when it comes to services like finance, the white paper makes clear that there won't necessarily be a single rule book, and there won't necessarily be business as usual. The City hoped the UK and the EU could respect each other's rulemaking process without it being identical. The government thought that would be a hard sell in Brussels, so the UK is proposing to go its own way, which will make some services harder to sell in Europe. A mistake, say finance chiefs.
Professional financial services are really not catered for at all, and it's very disappointing. It's not providing the certainty we need, so if anything, it's going to accelerate our plans. Lloyd's, for instance, we're moving to Brussels. We will be full steam ahead, and many other banks, insurers and other professional service firms will be moving at pace now.
Business groups want more detail, more urgency and more cooperation from the EU.
They want the EU now to engage. We've had flexibility on our side. We now need similar constructiveness and flexibility on the EU side. This is time to get round the table because it's become, I think, for businesses a race against time.
This white paper is not a solution, it's an aspiration. The tough negotiations don't end but start here, and business knows it. Simon Jack, BBC News.
Well, let's go live to Brussels from some reaction there. Our Europe editor, Katya Adler, is there for us. Katya, what's your sense of how they're likely to respond to this white paper?
Well, the EU response to you comes sort of in two sections, if you like. Mood and content. The mood music here is pretty positive. I mean, the EU has been asking the UK for a long time to come up with a detailed position on how it imagines EU-UK relations to be like after Brexit. Well, now Brussels have it. Also, the EU sees that Theresa May is moving towards a softer Brexit, which the EU prefers. But when it comes to content, EU officials are far more cautious. We heard from Michel Barnier in a tweet today, the EU's chief negotiator. He said, "We need need time to analyse this white paper. Of course, it's a dense and a long white paper, but privately, the EU already rejects large parts of the white paper, but it sees it as a springboard to restart face-to-face negotiations this Monday. Another reason why EU leaders today are reluctant to comment in detail is because they see that febrile political atmosphere back in the UK, and they think that whatever they may comment or criticise in the white paper could just add fuel to the fire.
Katya, thank you so much. Katya Adler there with the latest reaction in Brussels for us, our Europe editor. By the way, you can find out more about this government white paper today, all the content in it and the Brexit negotiations so far. Plenty of material for you to have a look at on our website, bbc.co.uk/Brexit, and you'll see all the links there. The time is 17 minutes past 6. Our main story this evening. President Trump has now arrived in the UK for his first visit since taking office, and thousands of people planning to protest against his policies. And coming up...
Here at Wimbledon, Serena Williams marches on, but she says there's nothing inevitable about another final.
Coming up on Sports Day on BBC News, Chelsea are set to announce the departure of manager Antonio Conte after 2 years in charge, with former Napoli boss Maurizio Sarri expected to replace him at Stamford Bridge.
Well, England's footballers have been widely praised for their performance in the World Cup, despite losing to Croatia in last night's semi-final. There was disappointment, but there was pride too, as fans praised what the young side had achieved in recent weeks. And as our correspondent Natalie Perks tells us, the prospects for English football are certainly looking a bit brighter.
After all that effort, all that energy, the ghost of '66 lives on for England.
The sight was a familiar one, of shattered England players slumped on the turf, of tears and of regret, but this time it somehow felt different.
Bigger than the Kremlin, we are bigger.
In Red Square today, the English that remained were reflecting on a defeat that still gave them reason to smile.
Heartbroken and proud, yeah. Like I say, first semi-final win, however long, it's a bit of history, too young for the 1990s, so, you can say you were there, can't you?
Nobody expected us to get semi-final, very, very proud, and like I say, we'll go again.
Quite positive actually, because we can come back and win it, because we got to the semi-finals with a young team, and then with an older team we can come back and get even better.
Well, England fans have had a summer to remember. A relationship that was at its lowest ebb has been repaired, but this was by design and not by chance.
St George's Park, the National Football Centre, was opened in 2012 as a home to all of England's 28 national football teams. 2 years later, the England DNA was launched, a blueprint for how England teams should play. It's starting to bear fruit. The under-19s are European champions, the under-17 and under-20s are world champions. And for the senior side, Gareth Southgate has helped nurture a new culture.
They're all interacting and seeing each other training, and so it gives an identity really to the England team that we've never been able to have before. It's a massive step, and it's great for everyone to be pulling in the right direction.
But there is one thing St George's Park can't fix. English players only make up 33% of the Premier League.
It goes back to the old problem. Are they going to get game time at their given club? This is important. That's the piece of the jigsaw that needs sorting out before we can actually see these guys come through to fruition in English.
As fans sang his name long into the night, Gareth Southgate returned the affection. He's sensible enough to know the relationship might not always be this friendly. But as he embraced his wife, he might have allowed himself a moment to reflect upon how he's made the impossible job seem possible again. Perhaps even fun. Natalie Perks, BBC News, Moscow.
One of the British divers who helped find 12 boys trapped in a cave for more than 2 weeks in northern Thailand has been speaking publicly about his part in the remarkable rescue mission. John Valanthan, who helped lead them out, said it was a huge relief that the boys had all been brought out alive. Our correspondent John Kay has the story.
Quietly, modestly, with all his diving gear, John Valanthan returned to Britain. Praised by strangers.
We're pleased it worked out.
but playing down what he'd done.
We're not heroes. What we do is very calculating, very calm. It's quite the opposite. We take it one step at a time, and hopefully, as we've managed to in this case, we come up with a result.
And what a result.
How many of you? 13. Brilliant.
It was John who found the young footballers in the cave and then worked with many others to get them out. An extraordinary rescue, the most challenging conditions, a race against time.
An international team of military and civilian divers working alongside the Thai Navy. Everybody pulled together, and the results speak for themselves. So we're just very happy that the boys are out and safe.
We've got someone who's done something so heroic.
Pride in the North Somerset village where John Valanthan is a scout leader.
We teach children as part of the Scouts and Girl Guiding movement to think of others before themselves, to think about the world around them. And he's just taken that to the sort of ultimate.
There are calls for honours, but John Valanthan says cave rescuing is just his hobby.
But everyone's very proud.
Now it's time to sleep and get back to the day job in IT. John Kay, BBC News.
Kylie Jenner, star of the reality TV series Keeping Up with the Kardashians, is set to become one of the youngest ever self-made billionaires, according to the business magazine Forbes.